Welcome to Secrets Worth Sharing, a series all about having more supportive conversations around child sexual abuse. This particular episode is about the role of institutions, practical, survivor-led advice about what you should and maybe shouldn't say during these situations.
The first would be, aren't you worried about people making it up? I've heard that a lot. We really need your support, not suspicion. Please don't treat us with suspicion. I think one of the reasons that really annoys me is it is something that has been used in the past to keep victims oppressed so much. An argument that's been used to oppress probably millions of victims over the years, to be accused of lying. I'm so tired of it. It's such an old argument, and I'm not saying that never happens, and it is a concern. So I'm not negating the importance of that as an issue. But I do think it's so rare. I mean, the evidence tells us it's extremely rare. The vast majority, the overwhelming majority of people coming forward are telling the truth.
And also to just remind people, like that report you've probably heard about, that one news article you've probably heard about someone lying is just that. It's one case in millions where people are telling the truth, and yet it's the one people love to spotlight.
I know, and that upsets me as well, because the prevalence of child abuse versus the time someone has made it up, and yet we give the headline to that. We use that as a fear-mongering type reason to keep challenging victims, and surely we have learned we don't need even more reason to challenge children, vulnerable children. Yeah. And the second one, but he's begging you to never say this, would be, but why does it take people so long to come forward? I think that is sometimes said in a very suspicious way. Like, why now? What are they trying to get out of this? And I have to say, in my experience, I've mainly had that comment from men. And I think one of the things that really upsets me about it is it jumps the conversation straight back to perpetrators. There are a million and one reasons that I won't go into right now as to why it takes people a long, long time, could be decades, could be a lifetime to disclose, and why some people never do. So I'd really encourage you never to say that.
I guess my two are very similar to yours. I have quite a funny story. Just after I just found out my abuser got out of jail, I was a bit stressed. Didn't write that essay that week. Like, I wrote it, but it was absolute crap. And then I said to the lecturer, just so you know, like, my essay this week's really bad, it's late, and I have a good reason for it, but, I'd be grateful if I could come a little bit earlier to explain myself to you. And as soon as I walked in, she was like, so what did you want to tell me then? And I just said, I thought I owed you an explanation as to why my essay is late. And essentially, my abuser, who abused me as a child, has just been released from prison, and I only found out this week by accident. And the first thing she said is, I've read so many academic articles about this, and it just baffles me as to why people don't come out about it. Like, why didn't you tell your parents straight away when it happened? Then she went on to completely divert the conversation to be all about her. Yeah. And then she talks about her parents and her parents' illnesses and how that had impacted her. But I just remember sitting there being like, I don't even know what to make of this.
Go, thank you.
Exactly. For a lot of people at university who have gone through this, university is a space where they actually start to process what happened as adults.
Yeah. It's often the first time people are escaping their family environment, and as we know, a lot of people sadly are abused within the family.
Yeah. My second sort of like bad one is when we see these things on the news. There's been so many cases of all these authorities and institutions really mistreating children. Yeah. And then I sit there and listen to people responding to these reports on the news and go, but our institution's not like that. This would never happen to my child, my family, my friend. And it never does until it does,
Yeah.
And so
I think that's a very common response.
Yeah. And by saying that and responding that in the way to the news, what you've actually accidentally done has raised that barrier even more. And there are so many times, even with people I've trusted, like adults I've trusted, where I so nearly told them, and then I saw how they responded to paedophilia cases in the news, and then I thought, I'm good actually.
Yeah. For me personally, if I am trusting you enough to tell you, I don't need you to do anything. Some people panic, understandably, with the weight of what they're being told. Some people will spring into, what do I need to do? What should I say? What am I, like, how can I? And that is wonderful that they're demonstrating that level of willingness to help. But I think for me personally, having already disclosed previously, there is nothing I need you to do. I don't need anything from you. So please don't panic. Because that in itself can take a lot of weight off what I'm saying and put me into reassuring you and trying to make you feel better. I think that's a very common experience for a lot of people. So I don't need you to do anything.
Yeah. And if you do, often if it's about looking for institutions or support services, if that person needs it, you'll do it together.
Yeah.
In your own experience, what have been some of those most treasured things that people have said to you?
Yeah, where have I had really positive experiences? I think I have had experiences of being really well supported. There is one person in particular in HR. If you are ever watching this, I might just say his name, Ben, you're amazing. Where I was off work for long periods of time because I wanted to die. And coming back to work was massive for me. And we used to go for hot chocolate every week, so I still had that contact. He would wait for me by reception so that I could help coming back into the office. So that was, for me, a really positive experience of accepting support in relation to a disclosure and not necessarily knowing what I needed, but having suggestions, proactive suggestions offered to me and thinking, oh yeah, actually, no, that would really help me. So not so much a disclosure story, but definitely a great example of an institution supporting someone trying to grapple with the after effects of abuse. Yeah.
And I'm glad you had that somewhere.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, that was in a law firm. Wow. Yeah. Oh. How about you? Any great experiences? They're sadly rare, I think.
They are. But there's one. I never actually heard it myself, but it was something that the judge of my case said in the courtroom.
Yeah.
That my mum relayed back to me. And, for some people this might be a problematic statement, but I took a lot of positives from this. So shortly after my victim personal statement had been read out, and I remember writing it, it's to this day the most important and thoughtful document I've ever wrote.
Wow.
I very much wanted to write it myself. I insisted on writing it myself. I think the police, to be fair to them, I guess as a form of support, they offered to write it for me, but I was like, no, I want my words to be my own words. And my mum told me that after it got read, the judge said, I have listened to many of these, and I can say that this is one of the most heartfelt ones that I've ever heard. And I would also like to highlight to you that the statistics of your daughter turning out the way she did, given everything that happened to her, are so rare, and that we need to reflect this in what happened. I mean, he later then got a very, very low sentence. The fact that he said that made me feel like there was some sort of strength within me.
Yeah.
But I also recognise there's a lot of side effects that are perfectly validated from this that I didn't experience, and he's very lucky not to.
Yeah.
So that's why I say it's a bit of a loaded one.
I've had similar experiences where people have commented on positive things like resilience or strength or whatever it might be that I have or haven't done with my life. I had an ex who used to say to me a lot, oh, if I'd been through what you'd been through, I'd be swinging from a tree. He meant that in a very complimentary way. That there's so many factors that play into how people come out of this, and no matter what your emotional response, you've not failed anyone, you've not failed yourself. So I totally get the whole double-edged sword thing.
I think that wraps it up for today. And you'll be happy to know. This is my one ask of this series, that you tell someone that you've listened to this conversation and use it as a seed to start conversations of your own, and you will be surprised what the feedback will be. I think I can speak for both of us in saying that it's actually that practice of having these chats more regularly that's got us to sitting in these chairs right now.
Yeah.
And we'll see you in the next episode. Thank you.
Bye.
If you like this, you'll also enjoy our longer podcast episode on this theme, with more juicy bits, practical advice, and personal stories. Check it out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or go to www.secretsworthsharing.com.